Directions. Now you will hear some talks and discussions about academic topics. Each talk or discussion is followed by 4 or more questions. Choose the best answer to each question and mark the letter of the correct answer on your answer sheet. You will hear each talk or discussion only one time. Number 15. Questions 26 through 29. Listen to a teacher talking in a history class.
The 1960s were a decade of revolution and change in politics, music, and society around the world. It started in the United States and the United Kingdom, and spread to continental Europe and other parts of the globe. The 1960s were an era of protest. In the civil rights movement, blacks and whites protested against the unfair treatment of races. Towards the end of the decade, more and more Americans protested against the war in Vietnam. Many people in the United States thought that Americans had no reason to fight in a war that was so far away from home. Female activists demanded more rights for women, whose role in society began to change. The birth control pill and other contraceptives were introduced, making it possible for women to plan their careers and have babies when they wanted them. The 1960s shattered American politics with the assassination of famous leaders. John F. Kennedy, who became the first Catholic president in American history, was gunned down in Dallas in 1963. When his brother Robert ran for president in 1968, he too was killed by an assassin's bullet in California. A few months earlier, civil rights leader Martin Luther King, who had done more for African Americans than any other person before him, was killed in Memphis, Tennessee. After World War II, people all over the world started working hard and respecting the values they were brought up with. Especially in Europe, it was an era of recovery and rebuilding. In the 1960s, many young people started doubting such values. They protested against society and everything that was mainstream. They had long hair and wore unusual and strange clothes.
Now answer the questions. 26. What's the main idea of the talk? (27) What can be inferred from the talk about women? (28) Why was civil rights leader Martin Luther King killed? (29) Why did the young people in the 1960s have long hair and wear unusual and strange clothes? Number 16. Questions 30 through 33. Now you will hear part of a radio program.
Hello, listeners. Today I will be speaking with Mr. Pringle, a founder of a modified normal bus seat. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. Pringle, I hear a low-cost modification to a coach seat will give the wheelchair-bound easier access to travel and give coach companies a cost-effective way to comply with anti-discrimination laws. Is that so? Can you tell us about the coach seat mechanism?
Yes, indeed. The disabled passenger transfers from his wheelchair to a modified normal bus seat that is hoisted onto the coach via a lift and then locks into place, while the owner's wheelchair is stowed in the luggage area.
Mr. Pringle, when did you begin developing the quick lock technology, and how about its progress?
Well, that's an interesting question. I started developing this quick lock idea in 2008, today with a working prototype and a coach service to pilot the project. The company is ready to develop a fully commercial model as well as adapting the technology to suit the airlines and trains.
Mr. Pringle, as director and co-founder of the company Special Transport Solutions, can you explain how to fix the wheelchair in the buses? It must take too much room.
Okay. Bus companies must remove 4 seats in a costly and troubled process to accommodate a wheelchair-confined passenger in that space. They have to remove 4 seats. This is done in the coach operator's depot, normally by the mechanics. And the person travels in their wheelchair, and they're strapped down in a space where the 4 seats would be. And it's not a very cost-effective system at all. But unfortunately at the moment, it's pretty much the system, and no one is really happy with it. And the industry is definitely not happy with it.
So how are people in wheelchairs secured once they're on board?
They use motorbike straps, the ratchet-style strap in 4 corners of their chair.
And how safe is that in an accident?
Well, the straps are quite strong, and the anchor points in the floor are quite strong. But most wheelchairs are not crash-tested, so there is always the risk that in an accident the chair may break up.
Now answer the questions. 30. What is the interview about? 31. What can we learn about the safety of this coach seat? 32. Why does the manager want to apply this technology to airlines and trains? 33. What can be inferred when the manager said, "No one is really happy with it"? 17. Questions 34 through 38. Now you will hear a speaker talking to a class on a trip to Vanuatu.
Hello everyone. Thank you for visiting Vanuatu. I hope you can enjoy yourselves here. Vanuatu is an island nation in the South Pacific. It is also one of the smallest countries in the world. But for those interested in adventure and sport, there is a lot to do. Some of the best snorkeling and sea kayaking can be found here. Vanuatu's islands also offer visitors 2 of the most exciting and dangerous activities in the world: volcano surfing and land diving. Volcano surfing. On Tanna Island, Mount Yasser rises 300 meters, 1,000 feet into the sky. Yasser is an active volcano, and it erupts almost every day, sometimes several times a day. For centuries, both island locals and visitors have climbed this mountain to visit the top. Recently, people have also started climbing Yasser to surf the volcano. In some ways, volcano surfing is like surfing in the sea, but in other ways, it's very different. A volcano surfer's goal is to escape the erupting volcano without getting hit by flying rocks. It's fast, fun, and dangerous. The perfect extreme sport. Land diving. Most people are familiar with bungee jumping. But did you know bungee jumping started on Pentecost Island in Vanuatu and is almost 15 centuries old? The original activity, called land diving, is a part of religious ceremony. A man ties tree vines to his legs. He then jumps headfirst from a high tower. The goal, to touch the earth with the top of his head, without breaking the vine and hitting the ground hard. Every spring, island natives, men only, still perform this amazing test of strength.
Now answer the questions. 34. What is the main topic of the talk? 35. Who takes volcano surfing? 36. Which is true about volcano surfing? 37. Which is true about land diving? 38. What is the goal of land diving? Number 18. Questions 39 through 42. Listen to part of the discussion in a science class.
I went to visit my uncle up in Arnhem Land during the holidays. I wrote an essay about him for Mrs. Solomon. We had a lot of fun going out to the bush with him. He sure knows a lot.
What sort of stuff?
Well, all about lizards, guanas especially, what they eat, where they go at what times, how many there are, all that and more.
How come he knows all that stuff? Is he a biologist?
No, partially it's because he hunts lizards, so he needs to watch them pretty carefully. But a lot is cultural knowledge, he told me, that he learned from the elders.
I've got an aunt who studies lizards. She goes to the bush too, for weeks at a time, looking for crowned geckos, way out near Broken Hill. They're endangered, so she tries to find out all about them.
Funny you should say that. My uncle has done some work with a lizard scientist called Pete. We talked to Pete and he said that he learns a whole lot more from Uncle Markham than he could from months of field trips.
Maybe Aunt Ji Shun should do that too, save herself a lot of work. But your uncle just wants to catch the iguanas to eat, Jenny. Scientists want all the facts, not just a meal. Science is about pure knowledge. How can your uncle's knowledge help that lizard scientist?
If you want a guana meal out there, you had better know a few facts because it's pretty rough country. And if you want to even see one lizard, let alone study it, those facts will help.
So he's a sort of scientist. Anyhow, I don't think that scientists are just interested in pure knowledge. Your uncle is trying to save those geckos, not just learn about them.
Yeah, I reckon anyone who is curious about the world, whether they want to use that knowledge or not, is a scientist.
Now answer the questions. 39. How was the girl's visit to her uncle? (40) Which is not the way for the girl's uncle to learn about lizards? (41) What does the man's aunt do? (42) What should a scientist be like, according to the girl?